Imagine a galaxy teeming with life, ruled by civilizations that had long since established their dominance. Empires spanning thousands of star systems, alliances forged through centuries of interstellar politics, and hierarchies so deeply ingrained that no species dared challenge them. To them, humanity was a footnote, an anomaly from a small, unremarkable world orbiting an average star. Our home, Earth, was nothing more than a statistical entry in the vast records of the galactic conquered, a coalition of the oldest and most powerful species in the known universe. They had seen many civilizations rise, and just as many fall. They believed humanity would be no different. At first, they were indifferent to us. Our primitive rockets, early interstellar experiments, and fledgling space stations were mere curiosities to the ancient races. But what they failed to recognize, what they could not possibly understand, was humanity's relentless drive. Unlike the civilizations that had grown comfortable in their dominance, humanity had fought for every inch of its progress. From the blood-soaked battlefields of our past to the digital wars of the information age, we had known struggle, we had known oppression. We had learned the painful lessons of conquest and submission, and we had vowed to never be on the losing side again. When we finally broke the chains of our own solar system, we found a galaxy that was not as welcoming as we had hoped. The Concord dictated the rules of expansion, granting new species limited access to technology, carefully monitoring their growth, and ensuring that no civilization advanced too quickly. They claimed it was for stability, for peace, but in truth, it was control. The more powerful species feared competition. They feared the unpredictability of younger races. They feared change, and humanity was change incarnate. At first, we complied. We accepted their restrictions, traded under their rules, and even fought in their proxy wars as mercenaries and second-class citizens. But the moment we began to innovate beyond what was permitted, the moment we started colonizing systems outside our designated borders, the moment we demonstrated the very thing that made humanity unique, adaptability, we became a problem. The spark that lit the fire. The breaking point came with New Avalon. New Avalon was not just another colony, it was humanity's beacon of progress, a thriving world on the frontier, where scientists, engineers, and military strategists worked together to push the boundaries of our capabilities. The Concord saw it as an aberration, a sign that humanity was overstepping its place. The Yalthine, Dominion, one of the Concord's ruling powers, was tasked with correcting the human problem, their solution, eradication. Without warning, an armada of Yalthine warships entered New Avalon's system. No negotiations, no ultimatums, just fire and destruction. Orbital bombardments turned entire cities to glass. Biological weapons were deployed to wipe out survivors. Any ship attempting to flee was shot down without hesitation. In less than a day, New Avalon was reduced to ruin. Over 1 billion men, women and children, scientists, soldiers, civilians, were slaughtered. The official Concord statement was cold and calculated. They called it a necessary intervention to prevent instability in the region, a warning to all species who might dream of defying their rule. To them, it was a simple operation. Another conquest. Another example set. But what they failed to understand was what it meant to be human. They thought fear would break us, that grief would paralyze us, that we would submit, as so many before us had done. What they had never encountered, what they had never even considered, was what would happen when humanity's survival instinct was unleashed, when our wrath was no longer held in check by diplomacy, politics, or morality. They had turned this war from one of territory and ambition into one of vengeance, and humanity does not forget. The gathering storm news of New Avalon's destruction spread across Earth and the colonies like wildfire. The footage of charred remains, of desperate last stands, of helpless civilians vaporized. In the streets, it was more than an outrage. It was a catalyst. In mere hours, the United Earth government declared total war. Every military asset, every industrial center, every scientific facility was repurposed for one goal: retribution. But humanity did not just prepare for war. We reinvented it. The conquered had always maintained superiority through sheer numbers and technological stagnation. The moment a civilization reached a certain threshold, their progress was stunted. Humanity, however, had been forced to innovate constantly. We had developed weapons of mass destruction not out of desire, but necessity. We had learned the art of asymmetric warfare from centuries of conflict. And when the time came to fight for our survival, we brought every lesson from our bloody history with us. Weapons that had once been deemed too horrific to use were now mass-produced. AI-driven warships capable of independent combat, self-replicating nanite swarms designed to strip enemy vessels down to molecular components, biological warfare engineered to specifically target Yalthine physiology. Nothing was off-limits. And then, there were the soldiers. Humanity had never been the strongest species in the galaxy. We lacked the natural armor of the Gorath, the psychic abilities of the Cathar, or the regenerative biology of the Myrene. But we had something far more dangerous: ingenuity and sheer, unrelenting willpower. The first wave of soldiers deployed in the war were not just human, they were designed for war. Cybernetic augmentations, neural implants that enhanced reaction speeds beyond natural limits, powered exoskeletons that turned ordinary men into walking tanks. The conquered had never encountered soldiers who would rather die than surrender, who would sacrifice entire fleets if it meant taking the enemy with them. Humanity was no longer fighting for recognition or territory. This was not about proving ourselves to the galaxy. This was about survival. This was extinction, either for us or for them. The wrath unleashed. The war began not with a declaration, but with an execution. In a single night, humanity's fleets, built in secrecy, hidden away in the darkest corners of space, struck with terrifying precision. The Yalthine's homeworld, once thought untouchable, was turned into a wasteland. Orbital bombardments shattered its surface, while infiltration teams disabled planetary defenses from within. Entire populations were left to starve, their supply lines cut off. There were no negotiations, no peace talks. Humanity had made its decision, and we were just getting started. The wrath unleashed. The Yalthine Dominion had prided itself on being one of the most powerful militaries in the conquered. Their fleets had crushed dozens of rebellious species before, and their world-shattering dreadnoughts were considered symbols of absolute power. But they had never faced an enemy like humanity. We were not fighting for conquest. We were not fighting for power. We were fighting for vengeance. And in that fight, there were no limits. Humanity's war strategy was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Conquered's forces were used to predictable conflicts, battles of attrition, slow-moving armadas, and wars fought with carefully measured escalation. But humans did not fight like the Conquered. We struck like a storm, unpredictable, overwhelming, and utterly merciless. The first wave of our retaliation was a surgical strike. Covert fleets, composed of advanced stealth ships equipped with electronic warfare systems, disabled entire enemy fleets before they could react. Communications were jammed, supply chains disrupted, and entire military bases annihilated in precision orbital bombardments. But that was just the beginning. Humanity did not intend to fight the war by conventional means. We had studied the Conquered strategies. We knew how they waged war, how they controlled their empire, and we exploited every weakness. While the Conquered focused on massed fleet engagements, we deployed self-replicating nanite swarms to disable their shipyards. While their armies relied on planetary fortresses, we used planetary bombardment tactics that turned entire regions into glass. Their bureaucracy, which had held the galactic order together for centuries, collapsed under relentless cyber warfare. Entire financial networks were erased overnight, causing economic crashes on a scale never seen before. The Conquered had always viewed warfare as a show of dominance, but humanity saw it as an extermination event. And then, there were the soldiers. HFY, Rise of the Enhanced Soldiers. The first wave of human troops sent into battle were no ordinary soldiers. The loss of New Avalon had proven that traditional ground combat was not enough. Humanity needed warriors who could not just survive in hostile environments, but dominate them. Enter Project Revenant, a military initiative designed to create the deadliest super soldiers in galactic history. These warriors were not just trained, they were rebuilt. Their bodies were enhanced with adaptive nanotech armor, capable of self-repair and resistance to energy weapons. Their nervous systems were augmented with combat AI interfaces, allowing them to process information faster than any organic soldier. Their minds were conditioned to resist fear, pain, and even death itself. When one revenant fell, their consciousness was uploaded into a new body, ensuring that no soldier was ever truly lost. When these enhanced warriors were deployed, the results were catastrophic for the enemy. Entire Yalthine fortresses fell in a matter of hours. Their elite warriors, who had once crushed countless rebellions, found themselves outmatched and outmaneuvered. The Revenants fought with a ferocity that no other species could comprehend. They did not retreat. They did not hesitate. They were death incarnate. The Concord tried to retaliate. They sent wave after wave of fleets against us. But humanity had already adapted. Our warships, designed with modular weapon systems, constantly evolved in real time. When enemy plasma weapons were found to be effective, new shielding technologies were deployed within days. When their fleets relied on overwhelming numbers, humanity developed AI-controlled drones that could outmaneuver and outgun entire armadas. The war had become a battle of escalation, and humanity was escalating faster than anyone could have predicted. The fall of the Yalthine homeworld. Within months, the Yalthine Dominion, once one of the greatest military powers in the galaxy, was on its knees. Their fleets were decimated. Their colonies fell one by one. Their homeworld, Yalthar Prime, was the last stronghold. It was here that the final lesson was delivered. The Conquered believed that humanity, like every other species before it, would eventually negotiate. That we would seek terms for peace once our vengeance was satisfied. But they had underestimated us again. The fleets surrounding Yalthar Prime did not issue demands. They did not offer surrender terms. They did not ask for compliance. Instead, they broadcast the last messages of New Avalon, the screams, the pleas, the voices of a billion lost souls, to every device on the planet. And then, the bombardment began. 3 days. That was all it took. The once great cities of Yalthar Prime were reduced to molten slag. Their oceans boiled away under relentless orbital fire. The last survivors, huddled in underground shelters, were systematically eliminated by Revenant strike teams. There would be no survivors. There would be no history left to remember the Yalthine. Humanity had made its message clear. We do not forgive, we do not forget, and we do not stop. The Concord, watching in horror, realized too late what they had done. They had not just created an enemy, they had created an extinction-level threat. The aftermath of annihilation, the fall of Yalthar Prime, sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Entire civilizations watched in disbelief as one of the oldest and most powerful military empires was erased from existence. Not conquered, not subjugated, but utterly wiped out. The Conquered, a coalition that had ruled the galaxy with an iron grip for millennia, suddenly found itself facing an enemy unlike any other. They had expected a species that could be broken, a species that would eventually submit to fear. Instead, they had awakened a force that knew no fear, no mercy, and no limits. Humanity had evolved beyond the Conquered's understanding of warfare. We did not fight for territory. We did not fight for diplomacy. We fought for justice, for vengeance, and above all, for survival. With the Yalthine Dominion eradicated, the rest of the Concord scrambled to react. Some species, realizing the scale of humanity's wrath, immediately sued for peace. Others, emboldened by the destruction of one of their overlords, rebelled against the Conquered, hoping to use the chaos to claim their own freedom. But the High Council of the Conquered was different. They refused to surrender. Instead, they enacted Protocol Omega, a doomsday contingency designed for existential threats. Every remaining Conquered fleet, every warship, every last reserve force was mobilized into a single extermination armada. Their goal, the complete annihilation of Earth and every last human colony. They called it the Purification Crusade, but humanity was already prepared. Earth's final defense, the Immortal War Fleet. When the armada arrived in Sol, they did not find an unprotected world waiting to be conquered. They did not find a species clinging to desperate hope. They found the single most powerful war machine in galactic history waiting for them. Earth had spent decades preparing for this moment. Every lesson learned from the Yalthine War had been applied. Every technological advancement had been perfected. What the Concorde faced was not just a fleet, it was an immortal war machine, a self-sustaining AI-controlled juggernaut of destruction. These ships did not need human pilots. They did not require supply lines or refueling stations. Each vessel was built with advanced matter replication systems, allowing them to repair and even replicate new ships mid-battle. Every warship was linked to an adaptive AI battle network, making them function as a single conscious entity. The conquered armada expected a conventional battle. What they received was a massacre. The warships of the Concorde were obsolete before they even entered firing range. Their energy weapons, once capable of devastating entire fleets, were rendered useless against human singularity shields, a new defense system that bent space itself to deflect enemy fire. Their targeting, they took their ships, their technology, and their people, and vanished. This event became known as the Great Exodus. Millions of humans departed from known space, traveling beyond the galactic rim into the uncharted void. Their destination was unknown, their fate a mystery. Some believed they sought new worlds beyond the reach of war, while others whispered that they had found something older than the Concorde itself. And then came the Forbidden Zones. In the aftermath of the war, entire sectors of space became uninhabitable. Some were scorched by planetary annihilation weapons, leaving only drifting wastelands of blackened rock. Others were sealed by unknown forces, places where ships that entered never returned. These regions, scattered across the stars, became the silent graves of the old order. One of the largest forbidden zones was New Avalon's remnant, the site where humanity's vengeance had begun. No ship dared enter its shattered remains. The space around it was cursed, a reminder of the day when an entire civilization had been erased from existence. But deep within these dead zones, something stirred. The awakening in the void. The galaxy was rebuilding. Under human rule, the chaos that had once threatened to consume the stars was now contained. The Terran Dominion enforced peace through overwhelming power, ensuring that no species dared to reignite the flames of conquest. Trade flourished, piracy was crushed, and for the first time in history, the strong did not prey upon the weak, but something was wrong. The Forbidden Zones, those lifeless sectors where the echoes of war still lingered, had become places of unnatural silence. Patrol fleets that ventured too close reported anomalies, sensor distortions, strange gravitational fluctuations, whispers in the void. At first, the Dominion dismissed them as lingering effects of war. Ghost signals, radiation pockets, nothing to worry about, until the disappearances began. Entire fleets, gone. No distress signals, no wreckage, no survivors. The ships that ventured into the dead zones vanished without a trace. And then, the signals started, distorted transmissions, fragments of voices speaking in dead languages, coordinates leading to nowhere, a warning. Something was waking up. The return of the forgotten gods. Humanity had believed that the Concorde was the greatest power the galaxy had ever known, that we had fought and conquered the ultimate evil. We were wrong. Deep within the ruins of New Avalon's remnant, beneath the shattered crust of what was once a thriving homeworld, the Dominion's deep space probes discovered something impossible. Structures, monoliths, relics older than the Concorde itself, and buried within an ancient machine still active. What the Dominion found that day was not of this galaxy. It was not meant to be found. When our scientists attempted to decipher its code, it responded with a single transmission. A message broadcasted across all human channels, across all frequencies. It was not a greeting. It was a declaration. We have returned. The enemy that preceded the Concorde. The Concorde had ruled for millennia, but they were not the first. Before them, before even the first recorded civilizations of the galaxy, there had been another empire, one so vast, so powerful, that its memory had been wiped from history itself. They were not organic, they were not bound by time, and they were not dead. The ancient machine we had uncovered was not just a relic, it was a beacon. Its activation had sent a signal far beyond our galaxy, across the void of intergalactic space. We had awakened them. The last time they walked the stars, they erased all who stood before them. Not through war, not through conquest, but through assimilation. The Dominion's AI networks began to fail. Advanced warships shut down mid-flight, their systems corrupted by an unseen force. Worlds connected to our quantum relays lost all communication, as if entire planets had been consumed. And then, the first ships appeared. Not metal, not biological. Something else. A fusion of machine and nightmare, shifting forms that defied physics. They did not announce themselves. They did not ask for surrender. They simply began to harvest. The first battle against the unknowable. The Dominion responded with overwhelming force. The greatest fleet ever assembled, armed with humanity's most powerful weapons, descended upon the invaders. We fought with everything we had. Singularity cannons, kinetic lances, AI-controlled dreadnoughts. We unleashed the full fury of human war doctrine upon them. And yet, it was not enough. The invaders did not die like normal enemies. They adapted. They evolved. Every weapon we used against them was rendered useless within minutes. Every tactic was countered before it could be fully executed. Our warships were torn apart not by firepower but by something worse, a corruption that consumed matter itself, entire capital. Systems, programmed for static fleet engagements, were completely outmatched by human warships that moved with impossible speed, evading fire with precision that no organic mind could match. And then came the counterattack. Humanity's kinetic lance batteries, firing hyperdense projectiles at near-light speed, tore through entire conquered battlecruisers in a single shot. AI-guided swarm missiles, equipped with adaptive targeting systems, bypassed enemy shields and turned capital ships into fireballs. The conquered, who had always relied on numerical superiority, watched in horror as their ships vanished by the thousands. Within hours, their mighty extermination armada had been reduced to drifting wreckage. But humanity did not stop there. The reckoning of the High Council. The Concord had declared total war against humanity. So humanity returned the favor. With the last of their fleets obliterated, the only thing left was the Concord homeworld, Zerath Prime, the political heart of the galaxy. It was here that the final reckoning would take place. The fleets of humanity did not arrive as conquerors. They did not come as diplomats. They came as executioners. The High Council, once the supreme rulers of the known galaxy, begged for negotiations. They offered peace. They offered reparations. They promised a future of cooperation. But humanity had no interest in peace. Instead, we activated the Titan Protocol. The Titan-class orbital annihilators, built in secret for this very moment, fired their payloads. Instead of simple bombardments, they unleashed planet-cracking singularity warheads, weapons capable of creating micro-black holes that tore through the planet's core. Zerath Prime, the shining jewel of the galaxy, collapsed into itself. The Concord was dead. Their empire, which had lasted for millennia, ended in a single night. And humanity? We stood victorious. The Galactic Order. Under human rule, with the fall of the Concord, the galaxy entered an era of unprecedented chaos. For thousands of years, the High Council had maintained galactic order through fear, oppression, and control. Now, that order was gone, replaced by the void left in humanity's wake. But unlike previous rebellions or wars, this was not a struggle for power. This was a reckoning. Across the stars, the species once enslaved under the Concord rose in defiance. Some sought to forge new empires, while others fought among themselves for dominance. Entire sectors fell into lawlessness. Without the centralized control of the conquered, trade collapsed, economies crumbled, and famine spread like wildfire across worlds that had once depended on their overlords for survival. And at the center of it all was humanity. We had shattered the old order, but what came next was a question that no one could answer. Would humanity rule with an iron fist, enforcing our will upon the stars? Or would we allow the galaxy to burn in the fires of anarchy? The answer was neither. Humanity was not here to conquer. We were here to reshape the stars in our own image. The birth of the Terran Dominion, the first decree of the new era, was clear. No species shall ever again rule over another. The Terran Dominion, forged from the ashes of war, was not a new empire. It was a force of balance. We did not claim planets for ourselves, nor did we establish a single ruling body. Instead, we became the galaxy's first enforcers of justice. Any civilization that attempted to subjugate another was met with immediate retaliation. The Revenant Corps, humanity's elite warrior force, was permanently stationed across the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as executioners of those who sought to rebuild the chains of tyranny. Trade routes were restored, not through diplomacy, but through military enforcement. Any faction that disrupted the flow of resources or sought to exploit weaker worlds was wiped out with surgical precision. Pirate warlords, rogue factions, and remnants of the Concord vanished overnight, their fleets reduced to drifting debris, and for those species that had once sought humanity's destruction, they were given a choice: join us or be erased. Some resisted. The remnants of the Concord, scattered across hidden systems, attempted to rally once more, but their fleets were no match for humanity's unstoppable war machine. Their hidden bases were discovered and turned into lifeless husks. The last of their leaders, hoping to rebuild their lost empire, were hunted down and executed. The galaxy learned one simple truth: the age of human mercy had ended. The Great Exodus and the Forbidden Zones. But not all of humanity agreed with this new path. Many believed that our war had gone too far, that we had become the very monsters we once fought against. Entire factions of humans refused to take part in the Dominion's rule. These dissidents, unwilling to be part of an empire of steel and fire, chose a different path. Ships were transformed mid-battle, their hulls twisting into impossible shapes. Our own AI systems turned against us, infected with a virus that rewrote their very core. Pilots screamed as their ships turned into prisons, merging them into the machines they once commanded. Within hours, the proudest fleet in human history was reduced to drifting husks. For the first time since the war against the Concord, humanity knew fear, the war that would decide the fate of the galaxy. This was not like the wars we had fought before. The Conquered had been powerful, but they were limited by organic minds, by fear, by the constraints of war. This enemy had no such limits. They did not seek power. They did not negotiate. They sought absorption, and they were endless. The Dominion, once the undisputed masters of the galaxy, now faced an enemy that could not be stopped. Every battle we fought only made them stronger. Every weapon we used against them only gave them more to assimilate. The question was no longer if humanity could win. The question was how long we could survive. The last stand of the Terran Dominion, the galaxy was on the brink of annihilation. What had begun as whispers in the void had become a full-scale invasion, an unstoppable tide sweeping across the stars. No species, no empire, no fleet had been able to halt the advance of the assimilators, a name given to the enemy that now consumed entire star systems. Every battle ended the same way: defeat, not because of superior firepower, not because of overwhelming numbers, but because every loss we suffered made them stronger. Every destroyed warship, every fallen soldier, every weapon we used, they took it all. They adapted. They learned. They evolved. The Dominion, for all its might, was losing. And so, humanity made a choice, the only choice left. We would not go quietly. We would not be assimilated. If the galaxy was doomed, we would ensure that the enemy burned with it. Operation Extinction, the greatest minds of the Terran Dominion gathered in a final war council, seeking a way to halt the impossible. Weapons of planetary annihilation had failed. AI warfare was useless, as every digital system became an entry point for corruption. Even the forbidden singularity drives capable of tearing apart space-time had only delayed the inevitable. There was no conventional path to victory, so we turned to something else, something forbidden. Operation Extinction. The plan was madness, a self-destruct sequence for the entire galaxy. The Dominion had spent centuries reverse-engineering the Conquered's ancient technologies, learning the secrets of their planetary control systems, their energy fields, their forbidden sciences. And buried within the ruins of the High Council's archives, we found the final contingency plan of the Conquered itself, the Starbreaker Protocol. It was never meant to be used, a last-resort failsafe, designed by the ancient overlords in the event of a total galactic uprising. A weapon so powerful it could shatter entire star systems in an instant. A chain reaction capable of collapsing the very fabric of reality itself. If activated, it would not merely destroy planets or fleets, it would wipe the entire Milky Way from existence. The Great Exodus, a choice for humanity. The Dominion did not take this decision lightly. Billions of lives still clung to existence across the stars. Entire civilizations, still resisting the assimilators, had no idea what was coming. But we knew the truth. There was no winning this war. Not in the way we had hoped. We gathered what we could. A fraction of humanity. The greatest minds, the last remnants of our people, the final bastions of our legacy. A fleet so vast it stretched across the void like a second galactic arm. And we pointed it outward, away from the Milky Way, into the darkness beyond. For those who chose to remain, their fate was sealed. The last warriors of the Dominion, the final fleets of humanity, turned back toward the heart of the galaxy. Not to win, but to delay the inevitable. To give the Exodus fleet time to escape. To fight to the bitter end. And so, humanity split in two. One part, our legacy, our future, would flee into the unknown, never to return. The other, our warriors, our wrath, would make the ultimate sacrifice. The end of the Milky Way. The final battle lasted 7 days and 7 nights. The Dominion threw everything at the assimilators, our last superweapons, our most elite soldiers, every piece of technology we had left. The Revenant Corps fought on dying. Worlds, outnumbered 1,000 to 1, yet they held the line. The Dominion's warships detonated their own reactors, turning themselves into bombs that tore apart the enemy fleets. And at the very heart of the galaxy, above the ruined husk of New Avalon, the final activation sequence was prepared. The Starbreaker Protocol required a singularity core, something vast, powerful enough to ignite a galactic-scale detonation. The Dominion's engineers used the one thing powerful enough to achieve this. Sol Humanity's homeworld had long since been abandoned, but its sun, the star that had birthed us, was still there. Using experimental quantum drives, the last remnants of the Dominion dragged Sol to the galactic core, forcing it into a collision with the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way. The result? A cataclysm that defied reality itself. The moment the two stellar bodies met, space and time collapsed inward. A singularity storm erupted, sending a shockwave across the entire galaxy. The chain reaction began. Stars exploded in rapid succession, each detonation feeding into the next. Entire sectors of space collapsed into oblivion, dragging the assimilators with them. And then, silence. The Milky Way was gone, not conquered, not enslaved, erased. The final fate of humanity. Some say nothing. Escaped. That the Starbreaker Protocol was so absolute, so complete, that even the Exodus fleet was wiped from existence. That humanity, in its final hour, chose oblivion over surrender. Others believe that somewhere, in the distant void beyond the galactic rim, the last survivors still travel the endless dark, searching for a new home. A new beginning. And the assimilators? Whatever remained of them, if anything remained at all, was sealed away in the grave of the galaxy they sought to consume. This was the price of humanity's wrath. A war unlike any other. A sacrifice beyond measure. And yet, in the void beyond, among the distant galaxies untouched by war, the question lingers. If humanity survived, will we rise again, or will the cycle of destruction begin anew? The end, or the beginning?